You are watching a master at work.
That would be me. Hey, welcome to another fabulous episode of Hidden Figures. Behind the numbers with the restaurant scientists. I just realized in my intro in the beat drop that it says you're looking at a master. Is that what it says, Marvin?
You are watching a master at work.
That is correct. You are watching a master at work. That's the first time I heard that in all these episodes you were shooting. I like that. We need that. You need to drop that every once in a while throughout the shows. Like, hey, welcome. My name is Jason Wallace. I am the restaurant scientist, and you are experiencing Hidden Figures behind the numbers with the restaurant scientist. Here, we talk about the inequalities and the state of blacks in food service. When I say inequalities, obviously we have to go back 15, 20, 30 years and more to really explore the impact that black chefs and black food service professionals have had on the food service industry, an industry that we love, that truly hasn't loved us back. So when you think about historically America, building wealth in America, the real estate game, the restaurant game, and how those two worlds come together, my show really talks about the economics behind running a profitable food service operation. And quite often, my clients as a restaurant consultant, they're passionate about what they do. Absolutely, we need that passion. But, at some point in time, passion gets in the way of profitability. And it doesn't really matter how good of a chef or how beautiful a restaurant you have. If it is not profitable, then what is the point? So today I'm honored to have as a guest, every week I say the same thing, but I got a lot of friends and I got a lot of professional, high qualified, high profile friends. And my brother, Casey Jenkins. Owner. Yeah. You got to give it major, much respect.
How's everything going? It's good. Yes, we are friends, Jason. So you know a lot of people, brother. You know a lot of people.
Yeah, man. Thank you. One, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're a very, very busy man. And, you and I go back, I want to say 30 years to the company.
Wow. It's been a while.
To America. So, Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason, for having me. So I've been watching your show for the last, few weeks. Every now and then I'll go and I'll log on. I'll go to your profile or someone's profile, and I'll say, "Oh my God, there's that show!" And it's a great show. And you're right, Jason. I knew you back when I had hair, actually. So,
yeah.
Wonderful show. Thanks for having me on. It truly is my pleasure. Thank you.
No, absolutely. So, Casey also is like myself is the United States vet. We want to shout out all the vets across the country.
Hoorah.
Yeah.
Number 5. There's only one branch, Jason. There's only one branch.
Here we go. These Marine guys.
Hoorah! Semper Fi till I die.
We used to do smokers, man. So for those that don't know, in the military and the Navy, smokers is the boxer. Like we were amateurs. Don't get me twisted. I'm not no professional boxer. But I can tell you that I used to enjoy when we pulled into Norfolk, Virginia, or even back here to the United States after coming off of a med cruise, and we would box against Army and Marines. These big jarheads coming in the ring all buffed up, and I beat the shit out of these motherfuckers.
It's a difference when you can only use your hands.
Exactly. Even though we had these big old 16-ounce pillow gloves and we had headgear. So, normally, but you had to have like less than 10 fights. They wasn't putting cats in the ring that had 10 fights and somebody else had 30 fights.
Yeah,
it was exactly. And it was a way for us to kind of get that aggression out. But now, much respect to my Marine brothers and my Army brothers and Air Force and all the armed forces out.
Thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you for your service, brother. So let's take a deep dive, man. Let's talk about our industry, our food service industry. what, 800, well, pre-COVID, 800, billion-dollar industry that, we have loved, and, that truly it may not have loved us back as Black food service professionals. So tell my audience a little bit about, how'd you grow up, where'd you grow up, and how you got into the food service industry.
Well, it's interesting. I couldn't cook a lick while I was in high school. I was horrible. I was a couple of my buddies actually love to tell a story of, we had the house all to ourselves when my parents went out of town in high school. Now, what they did that for, I don't know. And I was hungry, and I took a steak out of the freezer, and I literally frozen it all, put it into the pan. So they love to tell that story to see, where I progressed to now.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was interesting. I fell in love with cooking when I went to the Marine Corps. Okay. And I really didn't understand that there was this entire industry out there in which you can prosper. And we were talking about in the heyday of what we now know as cooking, back when the United States was still just, meatloaf and potatoes type of place.
Right.
So that was back in 1985 when I went in. And it was after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went and I had the GI Bill, didn't know which way I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And my mother told me about this cooking school. And she said, you might want to go try this. I went to an event up there, and it's supposed to be a really good place. We know you know how to cook, so why don't you go try it out? I went up there thinking it was going to be an easy degree. But little did I know, Jason, as you can attest to, we weren't making bechamels. At least that's not what we called it in the military. We weren't making bechamels and veloutés and hollandaise sauces for 3,000 Marines.
Exactly. Exactly. So where'd you grow up? What city?
I actually grew up in White Plains, New York.
Okay.
White Plains, go White Plains Tigers. Love White Plains. We bump into New Yorkers and people from Westchester County all over the world. Every place I've been, I think I've bumped into someone at least from Westchester, Mount Vernon, Yonkers, all over in that area.
Okay.
So great place to grow up and start my career off.
So you come out of the military, out of the Marines, go to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and what was that like? Tell me, culture shock.
We're gonna dive deep into this, like you said. It was a learning experience going. Now I had been all around the world and back, but going up to the Culinary Institute of Hyde Park, it was an eye-opening experience. You're talking about what at that time we might have had, 2,000, 2,500 students on campus.
Yeah. And
maybe 15 of us were African-American, maybe 25 of us.
Yeah.
Weren't many of us at all. This was back in the infancy of the Culinary Institute, where Jason, as a matter of fact, you and a couple of other cats, that were mentors to me and that I knew that were upperclassmen, if you will. You guys started the Cultural Society. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
And when you guys started the Cultural Society, a couple of years later, or a year or so later, I ended up becoming the president of the Cultural Society after you guys laid that foundation. Yeah. So we needed that camaraderie. It was tough. It was a tough place for being an African-American chef or aspiring chef. It was definitely a tough place to be because there weren't many people that looked like us.
Right.
And there weren't many people that were trying to cultivate those relationships. I think we had only had one Black chef up there at the time. And that was, oh God, what was his name? What was the brother's name?
Chef Coppage.
What was his name?
Was he there? Chef Coppage there? It was a baker?
No, he wasn't. He didn't come till years later. No, This was the West Indian brother.
I don't remember.
And we all took that trip up to see to Azaleas up in Maine. Oh, okay. He was West Indian, actually. Fair-skinned brother.
Oh, okay.
It's years later. He was actually, really great chef, man. And he was the only one that we had. He was actually the liaison for the Cultural Society from the staff.
Got you.
So weren't many of us up there, man. And then of course now there's quite a few African American chefs up there, but it was a tough way to go, man, when you didn't have people that you could turn to and that you could bounce ideas off of.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay. So now you graduate from the CIA and you had a vision of where you thought your career was going to go. And so what happened when reality meets Casey Jenkins, a young Casey Jenkins?
Yo, man, if older Casey could talk to younger Casey, hey Jay, I'm a little bit more reserved these days. Jay, you was always you were always a pretty calm, reserved cat. I remember I tried to lock horns with Jason a couple of times, but didn't know he was a smoker. So I'm glad I didn't really lock horns with the brother. But he was old enough and mature enough to say, hey, pup.
Yeah.
Chill out for a minute.
Yeah.
But it was if the younger Casey. If the older Casey could actually speak to the younger Casey, I think I would still be in the same place without as many bumps. But I think one of the things that I learned coming out of the Culinary Institute was I already knew how to cook.
Yeah.
Cooking wasn't my problem. There were tons of jobs out there when you're coming in as an entry level or a line cook or something of that nature. You're coming in as a commis or something like that. There's a lot of jobs out there, but once you start trying to break into those management levels, one of the things that they didn't tell us was that it's not about making the perfect burger, but it's understanding the value of making that perfect burger from the back door all the way to the customer. So those are the things that I tried to focus in a little bit more on. I worked at some great places, Aquavits, The Water's Edge, some really great restaurants. But being behind the line wasn't necessarily my forte. I knew that eventually I wanted to own my own restaurant and own my own business. So, and that's the route that I wanted to take. So, I'm glad I had, people like my parents that were extremely instrumental in that, saying, hey, find out what you want to do and exploit that.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So now we're in the late 90s, early 90s. So now you got a mid-level Casey. So let me set up. So yeah, Casey was a fiery young man. He he had great and he very super intelligent. Like let me just say, like this brother, super smart. So, but the ability to take that passion, you know what I mean, and that energy and channel it into positive environment where you can kind of treat people with kindness a little bit. To kick the door down from he didn't want to infiltrate the system. Like we used to be talking. It's like, yo, bro, like we can't just run up on the white man like that. You know what I mean? we got to, you know what I mean? We got to infiltrate. We got to at least get the door cracked. You know what I mean?
And I wasn't trying to hear that, man. I was Nat Turner with 2 burners kicking the door in.
He was not playing no game.
That brings me to a funny story. I got to tell this one. So I'll never forget. There was a cat named Troy Williams, and I still keep in contact with Troy. He's a great guy in the industry, doing big things with Sodexo Magic right now. So there was a racial incident that went on at the Culinary Institute, one of many that went on. But so they called me, and I'll never forget. We went up to the dean. I forget the dean's name. Mr. begins with a T.
Don't drop names. Don't drop names.
Oh, don't say no names. All right, we won't say no names. But we went into the dean's office
to protect the innocent.
Yeah, all right, to protect the innocent, right? So my intentions was to knock on the door. That was really my intentions, was to knock on the door. But for some reason, the door went flying open a little faster than I anticipated. And the whole window shattered on his office door. And there I was in trouble again. But my intentions were, to try to clear up some of the racial, animus that was going on at the school. Yeah. But it was, one of the things, Jay, I learned, and I learned it from, listen, anything that I've done in my career, in my life at this point, is nothing. I'm just the vessel.
Right.
Everything that I've learned come from cats like you, my parents, faith, family, and friends.
Thank you.
If I take it from an old saying that Muhammad Ali said, that if I'm the same man at 50 that I was at 30, then I'm wasting 20 years of my life. So that is my driving force. That is my catalyst for success these days. That's what I try to lean back on.
Absolutely. Okay. So talk to us about Trials and Tribulations, J&H Hospitality Group. How'd you,
man?
Talk to me about your first restaurant, your second restaurant. Did they, did you buy, did you rent? Did you get funding from a bank lending institution? Did you have investors?
Well, first and foremost, you're not going to no conventional lending institution to open up a restaurant.
Okay.
Back then, now, or any other time, it's just not going to happen. Gotcha. Unless you're a person, not a person of color. then I've seen things in the state of Maryland done on a handshake when you don't necessarily look like us. One of the things I learned with my very first restaurant, I'll never forget opening my first restaurant. It was extremely successful. It was called Darker Than Blue Cafe. We were voted one of the 50 best restaurants by Baltimore Magazine, the Baltimore Sun, one of the 100 best things to do when visiting Maryland. It got me a lot of accolades, but it was tough. I actually called two of my closest friends and said, hey, I want to open up a restaurant. One of them helped me with the business plan, and we started pushing it out there. The other one, came to the table with a considerable amount of cash, and we all put money in. And I opened up my very first restaurant. This is going to sound extremely, dangerous now that I look back on it, but $68,000, $68,000, all the money out of me and my two friends' pockets. Wow. And no one, I'll never forget, there was a woman named Elizabeth Large was the food editor at the time. And, she's long since been retired, but she was a food editor of the Baltimore Sun. And, she writes an article. They do a precursor, if you will, before they do the review. And we actually got 3 stars. And she wrote in her precursor to her review was that Casey Jenkins, is extremely talented and optimistic, or essentially I was a fool because I opened up one of the 50 best restaurants in one of the worst cities on the worst street in that worst city back in the early 2000s.
Wow.
So it ended up becoming popular and starting a spark there, but we weren't getting financed by conventional lending institutions.
Yeah.
We did it ourselves. Now, as I started to progress and step out of the kitchen a little bit more, because when you become a restaurateur, you're no longer a chef. You're no longer someone's executive chef.
Right.
You now have to start diving into the finances of things. You have to understand, what a P&L does, a profit and loss statement is. You have to understand putting together a 3-year prospectus so that you can get financing, because there are state organizations out there that you can get money from. So I'm African American. So I can use what's called the MBE program, the Minority Business Empowerment Program, which most states have, because it's a federal law that you have to, if you're getting city or state funding and you're doing those contracts, that you have to, a considerable amount. In the state of Maryland, I want to say it's 20% of those contracts, of the business in those contracts need to come from minorities, right. Which includes women. So there's money out there, especially in the state of Maryland, there's a program called the NBW, Neighborhood Business Works program. Okay. So they didn't teach us all of that in the CIA. You don't learn all of that stuff being behind the line. Right. So you kind of dive out there and find out these things through hook or crook, if you will.
Right. Well, they didn't at the time, just so in defense, not defense, but the CIA didn't have the bachelor's program then.
Yeah, you're right.
It was only an associate's culinary degree, and then, but now they do have bachelor's, and now they even have a master's degree program. So they, they have added the business side to culinary arts.
Kudos to them
from an educational point of view. Yep. So, okay, you open your first restaurant. You close it. Then what? So, just walk me through.
Well, opened my first restaurant in 2006. Darker Than Blue opened. And we were open. We had a good 10-year run. Now, in 2013, I purchased, I got a phone call who's now the mayor of Baltimore. He was a council person at that time. I got a phone call from him saying, hey, we've got a space that we're doing a security hold on, and we're looking for a great restaurant in that area. We want you guys to come over and give it a try if you're interested in buying it. We approached it, me and my partner looked at it. We had lost one partner at that point, and my other partner, we looked at it and we decided to buy it.
Okay.
So I don't want to tell you, being in New York, I don't want to tell you what we actually purchased it for. We got it for a steal, and we were happy. But, then you start learning a little bit more about, actually funding and how to buy a second gen restaurant. Right. And how to build up, which was a second gen restaurant. In other words, second generation, it's already been built out, and bringing it to what your vision is. Yep. So understanding what that build out's going to look like, understanding where those funds are going to come from, understanding what your sales per labor hours, your sales per labor dollars, and all of those things are going to look like. Absolutely. Going into a second gen location that already had a stigma with it.
Right.
No. So those were some of the things that we had to fight against. But at that point, then I started becoming a little bit more politically active. So I have to say this, if you take anything away from this conversation that we're having today, know who your local council people are, know who your local senators, delegates, and just know who your local politicians are.
Gotcha.
Because you're going to have to call on them. You're going to have to call on them to get a liquor license.
Right.
You're going to have to call on them because to get a liquor license in the state of Maryland, you have to have hearings. You have to have community hearings. You have to have a liquor board hearing.
Right.
And you're going to need someone that's going to advocate for you on that side.
Gotcha.
So, find out who those people think that it's just all about making the good burger or making the good steak or making, a great, veal milanese or something of that nature. But no, it's much more than that once you become a restaurant owner.
Absolutely.
You got to understand the ins and the outs and, the do's and the don'ts. And unfortunately, you're going to learn a lot more don'ts than you do do's along the way. But you got to stay focused. I've seen a lot of restaurants come and go.
So let me just back up a little bit. You said you purchased it. Did you purchase the restaurant? Did you purchase the building?
No,
because so just for my listeners out there, every state is a little different in terms of key money. Right?
Great question, Jason.
If I go into a second generation restaurant that is empty and the landlord has the space, then I just take over the space. But if there's an existing tenant in there and that tenant wants to now sell me that lease and any of those assets, meaning equipment, tables, chairs, ovens, grills, things of that nature, then that's an asset sale where really they're just selling me those assets, 25 cents on the dollar, whatever you was asking worth. So did you buy the existing corporation or you bought the previous assets from the previous owner, or did you deal directly with the landlord?
No, total asset purchase. Total asset purchase.
Okay.
And, great question, Jason, because, it's all about evolving. It's all about evolving. Right. And one of the things that we learned evolving, we opened our very first restaurant with, we went into our, our savings, we went into our 401s, and we pulled that money out and we decided to open a restaurant. Built up some popularity. Now we had people coming to us looking at these second gens. Now it was an asset purchase, which means we purchased the liquor license. And the liquor license, that's key in this point. We purchased the liquor license, which was called a BD7, which is the largest liquor license in the state that you can buy now, but they don't issue them anymore in the city of Baltimore because there were too many.
Right.
So we purchased the BD7, which had a real inherent value to it. And then you're right. Everything else, like the refrigeration, the seats, the chairs, and everything were pennies to the dollars on the purchase. The real value came in on the lease because the lease that we signed was a 15-year lease, and it had we had a couple of outs in it and this and that and this and that. But the lease was so dirt low also that was another value to it along with the liquor license. Right. So it was a complete asset purchase. But moving forward in life now, one of the things that I've learned is I have no intentions on opening up another restaurant without owning the real property.
The real estate.
Owning the real property, especially looking back at COVID now, is where your value is going to come in your business, because you're not building any equity.
Right.
If your business starts to struggle like people are doing COVID, you don't have any place to pull any extra cash from, because now your cash flow has pretty much died off because you're not getting any sales.
Right.
So you might have multiple streams of revenue, like catering, like over-the-counter service, like butts in the chairs and things of that nature. You might have all these other different streams of revenue, but when something like COVID hits and all that stops, where's your revenue coming from? Right. So you might be able to have something to pull out of the building because it'll have a little bit of equity in it. It'll have a little bit of value to it. Right. And there's some collateral. There's a collateral base there.
Right.
So it's one of the things that I've learned moving forward within the last 10 years, so that's why, we're buying more property, and that's why we got into that real estate game.
Got you. Yep. So for my listeners out there, I'm a teacher by heart. So the idea here is in different states is different. So in New York State, you don't own the liquor license. You basically pay the state a fee annually to operate a license, and the license belongs to that address, doesn't belong to you. But in states like New Jersey and in Maryland, the liquor license is a commodity of itself. It's an asset. You actually purchase it and you own that license that you can move from address to address within a certain municipality. So
Yep.
that's a value proposition there that, again, when as Chef Jenkins is talking, to really understand the difference between being a tenant and being an owner. So even at that point, like he says, he's going to purchase the building in his next ventures. Then even if he doesn't really want to be the operator anymore, he's a tenant in his own building, then he can then lease that out to another restaurant operator. And again, build an equity for himself instead of making all those leasehold improvements like HVAC and the kitchen exhaust and plumbing for the landlord. So
exactly. And you want to be able to go to a good realtor also when you're even putting together one of those structured leases, because like a lot of people don't understand, especially if you're a new restaurateur going in, you don't understand. HVAC is covered by you. It's covered by the landlord. And I didn't understand that in my first one. You know, there are a number of things you have to look at that, because when you're putting your letter of intent together, that's your precursor to your lease and your purchase. When you're putting that together, you're essentially going into that landlord or that building owner saying, hey, this is what my intentions is for this property, and this is what I intend to do financially here, and this is what my expectation is that you'll do financially. So those are definitely some of the things that you definitely want to look at going into those type of buildings. Now, and here's just, you know, I love that Jason is a teacher. And because I've done this, I'll give you guys just a quick example of something. So when I purchased, and you know, the deal's already done now, I've been there since 2013. So when I first purchased Birdland, I have no problems telling people, I only purchased it for $50,000.
Right.
I purchased it, asset purchase, everything, $50,000, liquor license, everything. Wow. So now the BD7. Now, BD7s, there are different type of liquor licenses in the state of Maryland. In Baltimore, they have BD7, they have what's called Class BWL. So I ended up turning around and selling that Class BD7, which is the largest one you can get. That's really the only license that's transferable inside of your legislative district. So I ended up turning around and selling that for $75,000, a year later, and clearing up most of the debt, of course, from the purchase. And then I turned right back around and purchased what's called a Class B restaurant license for a tenth of what the actual license was actually worth. So you gotta, one of the things that I want to impart on people is that, you know, you're no longer just a chef. Right. You're writing people's paychecks. Yep. So, you know, being able to keep your debt down while still being able to create streams of revenue, and while being able to increase that profit margin, that's your job at that point. Yep. Not making sure that perfect burger goes out. Hopefully we're employing the right people to be able to do that, because it's really a, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a really surreal feeling, understanding that, you know, you're responsible for people's lives. It's a lot different when you're signing the back of the paycheck and the front of the paycheck. Right. So, and you want to be able to keep that in mind. So you have to be able to balance that. That's why it made more sense. Let's sell this BD7 and go back and get another license. And, you know, now we've cleared up all the debt on this thing. So now we're pretty much debt free going into this restaurant. Yeah. So of course we had other things that we purchased and everything. So there was about an additional, you know, $70,000 to $80,000 out there that we had to buy other things with. But, you know, it was that's what it's all about. And of course, buying a restaurant in Baltimore is a lot cheaper than buying one in New York. Right. Yeah, a little bit. I told you this gentleman was intelligent, didn't I? So I don't know. No, just trying to eat, man. Just trying to eat. Smart brother. Much respect. Thank you. I do appreciate it. So J&H Hospitality Group. COVID, right. 2020. J&H Hospitality. Yeah. How did 2020 was COVID good for you, bad for you? Did you make money? Were you able to, how did you pivot for 2020 during this whole COVID? So what's making it good is that we're able to go out and help more people. J&H Hospitality Group we've gotten more into the consulting. We still own Birdland Sports Bar and Grill, but what we've decided to do is lease that, and we're about to sell that to another company. Okay. So now the idea is everything that we're taking in, we're looking to buy real estate. There's a lot of inventory on the market, unfortunately, and I don't want to take advantage of other restaurants' misery, but unfortunately there were people that weren't managing their bottom lines appropriately, and unfortunately, you know, a lot of people are being lost during COVID. 50%, Baltimore City alone is expected to lose 50% of the restaurants that it had open pre-COVID. is expected to go on the market after COVID is over. So I'm honestly positioning myself to start buying up some of those properties. And that's what it's all about. Being able to have some cash in reserves to go out and purchase these properties and do one of two things: either turn them into something that I want them to be, a restaurant, or either lease these restaurants out to other people that are just starting off. So that's what the game plan is. And what we've been doing, we've turned more into a consulting company more than restaurateurs. So helping people manage their lease, helping people pull in those resources. I get phone calls all the time from people in city government, federal, from state government, lieutenant governor, a bunch of people saying, hey, let's get this information out there to Black restaurateurs so they know that this money's out there. And what we do is we charge some of the restaurateurs, for assistance.
Absolutely.
So in other words, they come to me and they say, hey, we need help with getting our lease in line because of this whole COVID thing. So what are we going to do? So we put them in contact with the right people and being able to do that.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. So in terms of post-COVID world, so as you move forward into that venture, what are some of the services and people that you're trying to help? I know you introduced me to Terrence.
Yeah.
And there are some opportunities, I guess, down there in Baltimore. Yeah. When I go to the harbor down there, I don't see many Black-owned and operated restaurants. Tell me how Black restaurateurs could get access to more high-profile, high-tourist attracted areas and locations.
Well, one of the things, about 6 years ago, the governor appointed me to the Maryland State Board of Tourism. Okay. And so what we do is we have $250 million in marketing dollars. Well, not quite 200, just in 50 in marketing dollars, but there's a large sum of money that goes toward marketing the state of Maryland for tourism, bringing people in for day trips and things of that nature. What I try to tell people, or I try to inform people of, the harbor is not necessarily the best place for that. Let's leave that to those guys that are those what am I looking for, franchise type companies, those Fridays, those bubblegum shrimps. Let's leave that to them. The ancillary communities is what you want to start looking at. You want to start buying up some of those properties in those ancillary communities. You want to start looking at some restaurants in those ancillary communities because for a number of reasons. One, you're not going to be spending $10,000 to $12,000 a month for your CAMs and your lease and everything else. So with your CAMs is your common area maintenance. So when you go to one of those places, you're looking at paying, we'll say, $35 to $42 a square foot plus whatever your CAM might be, which would be an additional $10 a square foot, or whatever that might be, and that brings it up to $55 a square foot. So instead of paying $10,000, $11,000 a month, why not find something that's ancillary to the harbor and start finding a way to market and draw those people over to your places? Those are what I'm trying to tell people and push people toward. One of the other things is trying to teach the city and state organizations how to market toward African Americans. So before I got on the board, there hadn't been an African American on that board in close to 25 years. Okay. So when you looked at some of the marketing videos for the state of Maryland, they didn't include people that looked like us. We had all of these what's called byway videos that we marketed toward day trippers and weekend trippers in Virginia, North Carolina, New York, Delaware, West Virginia, and places like that. But there were no people that looked like us. So now we have people that look like us in these videos. They were forced to go back to the table and say, well, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do? What are we going to look at here to try to market more African Americans? Because believe it or not, we are still the single largest consumers on the planet. Yeah. We want to be able to market that.
Absolutely.
So and that's been key. So also, of course, being one of those people that said, hey, we've got to start bringing more African American people into the city. There was a guy that I was working with, or more so had communications with, and Al Hutchins, who's the CEO of Visit Baltimore, turned around. And as I'd like to tell everybody, the CIAA will now be held in Baltimore for the next 4 years. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they have moved the CIA to Baltimore. Wow. And so that's exciting. Also, we're also looking at, is it called FIFA? we're looking at bringing, so FIFA's coming to town, and we're looking to help market, FIFA out to people. So we're starting to draw more national attention, not just in a bad light, but we're starting to also draw more African Americans and tell them, come back to Baltimore, believe in us, we're open for business. So I'm working with the city and the state on doing those things.
Excellent. That sounds fabulous. Okay, so we're winding down here. We got a few minutes left. I don't know what you guys are gonna do. Being a Steeler fan, I don't know what you guys are gonna do about those Ravens.
Oh my goodness.
That's a different conversation.
You know what? Jay, I wish I would have known. See, listen, you a Squid and a Steelers fan? Oh my goodness. Yes. Man, if I would have only known, Jason, I would have found something else to do today. We're playing tonight, first NFL Tuesday night game.
Yeah. No,
we're excited about that.
Yeah, we took an L yesterday with
y'all did. To Washington. No, who was it? To Washington, no less.
At Washington, yeah. So I enjoy that rivalry between Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So how can people get in touch with you? How can people get in touch with J&H Hospitality Group if restaurateurs are interested in expanding their brands from other cities? Do you recommend Baltimore they consider coming?
Well, I'll make it this simple. All right, everybody can still reach me on, all of our social media pages, which are Birdland Sports Bar and Darker Than Blue Cafe, so I can all still be reached through there. And then also J&H Hospitality Group at gmail.com. I can also be reached there.
Hold on. You said it a little fast.
Sorry. Oh, I forget. I always forget once I start these conversations.
Birdland
Bar. On Instagram.
2 words, Birdland, or 1 word?
All 1 word, Birdland Bar.
Okay.
And that's on Instagram.
Okay.
And then Darker Than Blue Cafe on Facebook.
Got you.
And then Gmail is J&H Hospitality Group at gmail.com.
Got you.
And I'd love to answer this question because I know you're winding down on time. Is Baltimore a great place to come and open a business? Baltimore is an incredible place to come and open a business. If I had to sell Baltimore to anyone that was looking to come down, what's the true definition of an investment? The equation, the true formula for an investment is when your residual supersedes the amount of money that you put into it. You're going to be able to do that in Baltimore. Baltimore's growing. Right now, you're only looking at 10 to 12, maybe $15 a square foot on certain locations. Okay. We're starting to grow and we're looking to bring people back in. And crime is starting to come down. Education system we're working on. We've got a new administration in.
Okay.
There's money out there for minorities, lots of money out there for minorities. So please, you can give me a call and we can talk about it. Come to Baltimore. We're open for business.
My man. Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, again, I want to thank Casey Jenkins, owner of J&H Hospitality Group, for taking time out of his busy day to come and bless his brother, Jason Wallace. I want to thank my sponsors, Cornerstone Business Labs, Cornerstone Production, and Cornerstone Media. And until we meet again, power to the people.
You are watching a master at work.